What is going on? It is David Brickley. It is the Business of Social podcast powered by STN Digital. Each and every show, we talk to the experts to dig into digital and marketing and social strategy and making sure we, drop some knowledge for you guys as you take the time out of your day to listen. This is episode number 32. Right off the bat, we got Earvin Magic Johnson, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Not doing a tremendous job as the Lakers. He's not a GM. What is he? Vice president? Whatever. What is it? VP of basketball operation. Hopefully he can get something together this summer. But who else we got? 32. Will we got?
Arguably the GOAT of football, Jim Brown.
Jim Brown. That's a phenomenal player. Okay. We have an awesome show for you. One of my good friends, worked with him a ton at Twitter. He's the head of U.S. sports at Twitter. TJ Adeshola is going to join us on the program and really talk Twitter, talk technology, really what they're focused on as we sit here in 2019. And I think the biggest thing for Twitter and these social platforms that they're, at the IPO level, they're being judged on a quarterly basis. And I think when you're trying to build a platform at scale for long-term success and long-term growth, it can't always be a quarterly game. So I'm excited to dig into what the ROI is for his department. And I think they do a tremendous job. And I'm not just saying this because I know TJ, but his team, Dave Herman, Will Exline, all the great people, Brittany Cranston, when you reach out to them, they give you a response. And I'm just, an agency owner that has, quite a few clients, but they always email me back and always respond to my text messages. And I know that's tough, right? When they're dealing with the NBA, the NFL, the MLB, the MLS, they have so many partners that rely on them for somewhat of a smaller team. And they always just treat everybody with so much respect. And really, I think from a partnership relationship standpoint, that's just so important. I see them doing better than everybody else in the game right now at that. So you guys will enjoy this. TJ's a great guy. He's joined us, I think, from the National Championship in Minnesota, Minneapolis. So we will bring him on. TJ Adeshola, head of U.S. sports at Twitter. All right, guys, he is the head of U.S. sports at Twitter. TJ Adeshola joins us. TJ, what's up, man? Good to see you.
DB, what's going on, man? It's been a while.
I know it's been too long. I always kick things off with a random question. So in the spirit of hashtag NBA Twitter, we have three people at a three-point shootout. One person's Ryan Brown, the other one's David Herman, the other one's Will Exline.
Yeah.
Who wins that shootout?
That's not even close, actually.
Really?
You could throw a blindfold on Ryan Brown and he still might win it. Honestly.
Is that right?
Yeah, Ryan
skills by DH.
Ryan it's more so it's less excitement on David and Will and more appreciation of Ryan. Ryan can ball a little bit, man. Ryan can go.
Good. All right. One-on-one between you and Ryan. Who do you got?
Man, I'm never taking an L, baby. I'm never taking an L. And in fairness, I would hope that Ryan would say the same thing. I'm a little older, I've lost a little athleticism, but
okay.
But my pump fake game is mean. Game is mean. I've got
the pump fake helps out after 30, man. You gotta start using it.
I've got the old man YMCA moves now.
Dude, I got the double ankle braces and the tights and it takes me about 15 minutes to get ready and loose. It's all bad.
Of course.
I want to get into your story a little bit, and I know you worked for some time at ESPN prior to Twitter.
I did.
But what got you into this industry in particular, and what kind of makes you geek out about this particular field?
Yeah, I'll tell you, man. My path was not necessarily thought out. So every day I wake up and go to work, I'm super appreciative of where I am because I didn't draw this thing up, right? Like when I was in college, there was no such thing as a Twitter. And so this is a role that truly did not exist while I was thinking about what my future would or could look like. So I was at the University of Georgia, stayed there for grad school.
How about them dogs?
Yeah, exactly. Go dogs, go dogs. And I'll never forget this, man. Georgia was playing Auburn and ESPN College Game Day was coming to campus. And I had a few friends who had interned there. And I asked them to put in a good word for me. And they said, Game Day will be there all day. Just go to the set early. Try to find the person who looks the most important and do what you do. So I got there early. It was at our student union called Tate at UGA, and none of those guys were wearing blazers, as you'd imagine, because they were on their feet
Yeah.
all day. And I just try to pinpoint who seemed the most important, who was calling the shots, and who had the most pull from a college student's perspective. I ran up on this dude named Dave Zaslowski. He ran all of their audio programming. This was back at the time when it was called ESPN Radio. Told him I'm a grad student at UGA, and would love an opportunity to land an internship in Bristol, Connecticut at ESPN. A few months later, I got the internship. Internship concluded, and I committed to myself that I wouldn't leave Bristol without a full-time job offer. And I ended up getting a full-time job offer, and the rest is kind of history, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So talk me through Twitter and how that came about. So you're working at ESPN. Did you work on mostly the marketing and the digital partnerships, right, side of things?
Yeah, so when I first started, I was on the audio programming side. So at the time it was waking up early and helping out with Mike and Mike in the morning, and Scott Van Pelt show, and Rosillo at the time. So it was a really good time. And I, for one, was ready for a change from Bristol, Connecticut. Shout out to my homies who are still in Bristol, Connecticut.
We just had Katie Daly on the show.
Oh, she's great.
Last week, so
she was also
she's holding down Bristol.
Yeah. I grew up a city kid, man. So I just kind of felt the tug of the city, and there was an opportunity in Chicago, which would require me to shift business units. So in Chicago, it was more of a sales marketing role on the operation side, supporting our digital initiatives. So it was Watch ESPN, it was ESPN.com, working with marketers to assist them and to build marketing strategies that leverage ESPN.com and Watch ESPN, help them drive their objectives. So that was my first soiree into the digital space. And while I was there, I had a friend who was like, man, this Twitter thing is kind of popping, man. You should look into it. So this doesn't happen, David. I applied online. And I got a call back.
Careers.twitter.com.
I'm telling you, man. Shout out to careers.twitter.com. We working.
All right.
I applied. I got hit back within 48 hours. And I did well in the interview process. And at the time, Twitter Sports was developing an identity. Because it was so early, most of the work that we were doing was around just helping publishers and partners be good, and athletes be good at Twitter, best practices, things that work versus things that don't work. And here we are several years later, and we're talking about a platform that has had Thursday Night Football live, a platform that has the second half of NBA games live, PGA Tour coverage, live MLB and MLS games. It's changed a lot, the dialogue that we have with the best sports publishers in the world, in my opinion, have evolved. And it's a really, really exciting time to be in the space.
Two kind of random topics I want to go down. First of all, I think to applaud you, man, you have some of the best people skills in the industry, in my opinion. I think you really know how to connect with people, and I think that obviously is amazing in your type of role where you're on the ground and you're dealing with partners. Do you constantly think about that? Is that a skill that you built over time, and do you know you kind of have a skill set in that area?
Wow, man, I'm just excited to work in sports, man. I grew up a sports junkie, so I think part of what makes me successful at what I do is just a genuine passion, right? Like every day I'm
positivity too, yeah.
Yeah, like I'm happy. I'm happy to lace them up every single day and have some of the discussions with the folks that I grew up being a super fan of their properties.
So TJ at McDonald's drive-thru may not have that same passion. Yeah.
It depends if I'm getting free fries. If I'm getting free fries, I might be a pretty happy dude. So, I mean, for me, it's just keeping myself or reminding myself of how dope my job is and how cool the team that I get to work with on a day-to-day basis is. So that fuels a lot of the passion and the energy that I have for the role.
Is that, I mean, do you just, I would assume you would preach that's the key to success overall. I think there's so many of our friends, I'm sure, and so many people that you come across that just unfortunately don't have that love, but they're staying on the grind and they just don't really have that passion. And that wears on you if you're not waking up and truly loving what you're doing.
Yeah, it's tough. I think about it with athletes too. Like you always hear folks
Hmm.
ask, like, when do you know you shouldn't be playing anymore? And they say it's when I don't love it. So
Yep.
for me, when I come across people at their jobs who are just kind of like, man, I can't stand this. I'm like, well, maybe you should reevaluate like what you do.
It's time to move on.
Maybe
Yeah.
there are things that you can harness passion for. Because when I think about my team, especially, we've been
Hmm.
fortunate enough to have very little attrition. But when we have had opportunities, the first thing I want are people who love sports, because you'll find yourself in Minneapolis
It's a
in
grind.
February for the Super Bowl, freezing your ass off, right? But if you love sports, you're like, yeah, but I'm
Yep.
also here for the Super Bowl. So
Yep.
it requires people who love their job, because this thing isn't a 9 to 5. Twitter, as you know, social isn't a 9 to 5. So you got to put in a little bit of work. But if you have a passion for it, it shouldn't feel like a job all the time.
Yep. I love it. I also want to applaud you, your team, and I want to get into like brand awareness for Twitter specifically because I think outside the other networks like a Facebook, like an Instagram, like a Snap, you guys, especially in the sports side, but entertainment as well, you guys make sure you have a footprint. You guys make sure that the celebrities see that Twitter bird at these different events and know that there's a presence there, know that there's a human behind this platform. I'm assuming that comes from the top down, but is that just a thing that is constantly you guys are striving for to be out there and touching people?
Yeah, I think we've always had a bit of a scrappy mentality.
Hmm.
Um, but another thing too is we've really cherished the relationships that we have with partners. And if the NFL says there's an opportunity for Twitter to have a presence on Radio Row, our first question is, do you want us to be there? Can we add value? If that's the
Yep.
case, let's do it. Or if it's the NBA awards and they say
Yep.
there's a footprint to capture content, I call you up. I'm like, hey man, we've got a pretty cool footprint. Can we
Exactly.
do
Yep.
something that we haven't done before? So it really starts with having a scrappy approach, but two, and maybe most importantly, wanting to add value to our partners. When your partner trusts you enough to allow you to have a footprint at their top events, their
Hmm.
tier 1 activation, then you know there's trust. So the goal for us is to continue to deepen that trust and deliver upon whatever those objectives they may have are.
And that may be the celebrity or the players only interaction on the red carpet, and that they choose to go to the Twitter booth, and that's where they see the guys from the NBA or the gals from NFL or what have you. It is interesting that like I never really thought about that way, but they're trusting you guys and your team to say we're down to have you guys be kind of the front facing activation of this entire thing.
Yeah, and it never hurts to have the bird flying around all over the place. So that's a bit of a priority for me. I want to be tangible. I want people to reach out and touch
Yeah.
Twitter Sports, and I think we've been able to do a pretty good job. Man, I've got a fantastic team and I've got leadership who supports that. So it's been pretty good. It's been pretty cool. Well, the challenge for us will be to continue to iterate upon that. Once you've
Yeah.
done NBA awards a few times, once you've done Radio Row a few times, how do you do it bigger and better in the following years?
I want to dig into Twitter as a whole right now because I think we're going through this media transition. And let's stay in sports for a second, especially in the NBA. I talked about this with Tyler Price, who you and I both know well,
Yeah.
but I think we're getting to the place right now where players don't necessarily need the media, at least not as much anymore. These players, LeBron uninterrupted, he goes to the Lakers, and the only way you found out about it was through a Clutch Sport tweet
Mhm.
that came out. And what are your thoughts on kind of where we are in 2019 and where we're going in terms of these athletes, these celebrities having their own megaphone? I mean, maybe it makes more sense for Rihanna to post her music video or a performance on her Instagram rather than maybe going to the Billboard Music Awards because she has more control and she has that platform now when it comes to social media.
Yeah, it's one of the most exciting aspects of our job. I have a colleague, Brittany Cranston, who's based in LA, and her job is solely to work with talent and athletes and agencies, equipping them with the tools to leverage this microphone in really creative ways. That's really, really fun. With a guy like LeBron, who has initiatives around more than just an athlete and shut up and dribble. Like those are initiatives that impact lives and drive. It's really cool. Or today, even Le'Veon Bell tweeted out a shot of a text that he received from a teammate, and it was basically like, "Hey man, you've been a really good teammate to me. You've always showed love. It's always been positive vibes," and it resonated with him. And he tweeted it out today. And I think that's just a really cool way to showcase positivity and just the idea of being a cool teammate. So
one thing I wanted to get into, TJ, is just athletes, really. I mean, I think we're getting to a place now, and I was talking to Tyler Price, who we both know well over at Turner, about this, where I think we're getting to a point where athletes necessarily don't need the media or the journalists to get their message out there. You see LeBron with Uninterrupted. I think when LeBron went to the Lakers, it was simply a Clutch Sports tweet that came out. Where do you think we're headed right now, where the megaphone of a Twitter or social media overall allows these guys to speak to their fans directly?
yeah, it's a really exciting time, but it's contributing to this evolution, this rapid evolution that we're seeing in the marketplace. For years, we've worked with the traditional properties, we've worked with the networks, and we've worked with the leagues, and we created strategies for them to help amplify the leagues as well as the players. Now, as you mentioned, players are realizing that they have a microphone at their disposal, at their fingertips. They can tweet something out to the world and really shake things up, i.e. Antonio Brown yesterday, right?
Yes. Yeah.
For better or worse. Part of what makes my job so exciting and Twitter Sports at large is really working with athletes and agencies to empower their folks to do really cool things on the platform. We have a colleague of mine, Brittany Cranston. She runs all of our sports talent and agency relationships out in LA. Her mandate is just that. How can I work with athletes to help them leverage this microphone that we call Twitter to do really cool things? Last week, Tom Brady joined Twitter. Thank you, Jesus. And it was really
I'm retired. Great tweet.
It was really, really cool. And Brittany created an onboarding support and strategies for them to do it in really cool and thoughtful ways. So those are the conversations that get me the most excited, because I truly believe, and when used strategically, you can leverage social and Twitter specifically to do really awesome things. JJ Watt, as you know, raised tons of money for the city of Houston over the past year or so, and we're seeing athletes, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, LeBron, as you mentioned, and folks with the Players Tribune really leverage these the scale and the presence they have to create their own platforms. That's been a key change, and it's really facilitated some of this fragmentation that we see in the marketplace. We all know that every single athlete can't create their own Uninterrupted or Players Tribune or 35 Media per se. But it is really cool to see how the space is evolving, and brands, as a result, are starting to ask themselves, is it easier or is it more impactful for me to work directly with an athlete and their property for storytelling, or should I work with the traditional networks and broadcast partners like I have in the past to achieve these marketing goals? So it's fascinating, and I feel like we're at the forefront of that discussion, which is pretty fun.
I'd love to get your take on kind of like a viral clip in our industry anyway, which was Adam Silver. I think he was speaking with Bill Simmons at a conference and talked about how he thinks a lot of the players are kind of in a depressive state in a sense because of the hate or the negativity that can happen with social media. What are your thoughts on that? Like, there's such a good part of social, but also there's the part of social where if you're in it too much, if you're 24/7, and I think Kevin Durant maybe has felt this more than anybody, how to kind of balance that, right, where you can use the best of both worlds.
One of the things I admire a ton about athletes is how thick-skinned they are, man. you sat in stadiums and arenas before, and you look to your left and your right, and you're like, man, are you really saying this to an adult?
Yeah.
Don't know, or even if you know that fans get pretty bold.
The Westbrook moment in Utah comes to mind.
Oh my gosh, like it's wild. So to your point, when you can be anonymous and you can do that within a timeline, it tends to encourage more direct thoughts, good or bad. So one of our priorities is just safety and health. How do we equip these athletes and people in general on Twitter with the tools to block people, to mute people, to have an experience that doesn't feel like it is vitriol or doesn't feel like it is negative. And we've worked really, really hard to make progress, and we still got a ton of work to do. But we understand, and I hear this directly from athletes, we hear this in the stadium all the time. And so it's they've been hearing this, they've been getting trolled since they were in high school playing AAU ball. So they're accustomed to it, but when it's so prevalent, so ubiquitous, it has impacted some folks. So our one of our primary objectives is to make sure that they just have a safe, good experience when they hop into the Twitter app and they realize their ability to use the platform for good.
I think everybody in our industry understands that the NBA is really head and shoulders above the rest of the leagues, in my opinion, in terms of just global, sharing their content, allowing people to reach out and touch these athletes. A lot of it has to do with you can sit courtside at a Laker game and literally touch LeBron when he's dribbling down the court, which I think they talk about the NFL all the time. When you're wearing helmets, it's a little more harder to, I guess, associate with the athlete. But what do you think the NBA is doing right? You guys have kind of jumped into this hashtag NBA Twitter. It's been going phenomenal as well. What is the NBA doing right, and what can other leagues learn from it, in your opinion, to kind of be able to, increase their brand awareness?
It's interesting, man, because from my vantage point or my perspective, I see each of the leagues doing really, really cool things, and they all do stuff differently. MLS does things differently. They're really scrappy, and they're really, really leaned in and engaged on social platforms, and they're really eager to do bigger, to go bigger, to go deeper, and we have conversations with them on a weekly basis. The NFL, I want to say 2 years ago, created a program where they can seamlessly provide content for their players to publish as close to real time as possible. And they've equipped players with the ability to do that. Major League Baseball, they've done a ton of stuff, particularly with that BAM technology. So they all do stuff differently, and all of them do stuff really well. I think one of the advantages that the NBA has inherently, those guys the players just love social, right? That's
what I meant more. Like the athletes seem to use the social more, right?
Yeah, they're really, really, really leaned in. And I think about a sport like baseball where the personalities are just very different on the field, on the court. So it lends itself to a more front-facing kind of social presence. But I think one of the things that I commend the league for, the NBA, is equipping their players with the autonomy to go do it. Like, if this is what you feel, go do it. Use these platforms. Just be smart. They entrust them to be smart on social media, and I think it's delivered. That strategy, that approach is delivered in spades for them, because when you, as a user or as a fan, get personally bought into what Donovan Mitchell is tweeting, or what CJ McCollum is tweeting, or Kyle Kuzma's tweets, or his content on social, you inherently develop an affinity for the team. All of a sudden, you find yourself liking the Trailblazers because of how funny Dame is on Twitter, or how funny CJ is on social. And the same goes for some of the young guys on the Lakers as well. So the league has just done a really good job at that, and the players have grown up with Twitter, with Instagram, with Snapchat, so they understand how impactful these platforms are, and they're just savvy. They're savvier than some of their predecessors. So they've done a fantastic job just owning it and leaning into the impact that the digital can have for them.
I think we're around the same age. I was born in '87, so I mean, Michael Jordan was, Jesus to me essentially. And then growing up in LA, Kobe was another one of my heroes as 12, 13-year-old. Thinking back at that, if Jordan would have tweeted me, like, you know what I'm saying? If Kobe would have liked one of my tweets when I was 12 years old, I mean, that's better than an autograph. That's better than probably meeting him. And I can only imagine these fans now when they actually can tweet to LeBron or what have you, and he actually replies back. I mean, that's the thing you go to school and brag about and frame in your room, and it's a big deal, man.
I say that to athletes all the time. Like, if you scroll through your mentions and just hit the heart button a few times.
Yeah, exactly.
That does a world for.
You can make somebody's year, you know.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So what is, I guess, from a Twitter perspective, I'd love to hear from somebody at Twitter, head of US Sports. What's like the top 3 things that you're talking to an athlete or to a league or to a sports brand about how to leverage Twitter, how to best utilize the platform, for ultimate success?
Yeah, it's a great question. One is just being authentic, right? Like, don't try to be somebody else, because one of the gifts of Twitter is if people sniff out inauthenticity, they'll call it out. So being authentic, being genuine, being you resonates really well on the platform. I think 2 is providing a vantage point or an angle or perspective that folks don't typically get to see from you. Maybe you are a vegan. Tell us why you're a vegan. Tell us the type of stuff you eat on a day-to-day basis. One of the things that people love is seeing their workout schedules. Like, how committed are you to this? What are some drills that you do? What are some exercises that you do? Just providing a little view under the hood.
Just peel back the curtain. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And then what you just mentioned a few moments ago, connecting with fans, like hitting a like, hitting a retweet, responding, having that ability to connect in ways that our Jordans and our Kobes didn't have the ability to do beyond signing an autograph in person. Those are really, really, really cool ways to leverage social and do it in ways that drive impact. But providing that peeling back that curtain, like you said, tends to really do well for these folks. Publishing video, publishing images to rich media, that's helpful. And then, of course, you've heard this, man. You've been in the space long enough, understanding that your voice on Twitter may be different than your content strategy on Instagram, right? Planning differently for each of those platforms, both of those platforms being wildly impactful for them, but understanding that there are different approaches that you can have for each platform. Maybe instead of tweeting out an Instagram link, I actually upload that image to drive more engagements for myself on Twitter. Thinking about it strategically in those types of ways tend to be successful for the folks that we work with.
I've always wanted to ask somebody at one of the platforms this. When you look at like Instagram, Facebook, Snap, is there like a legitimate rivalry there? Is it like Team Twitter, forget Instagram, we're the best? Or like, do you understand there's like different lanes you guys all are good at? Like, how do you guys approach it around the lunch table at Twitter?
Yeah, so you've been at all of these big events, right? Like, we legitimately stand right beside each other. We occupy the same space at every event. So for me, like, I think it's foolish to look at them as people that I don't want to be around. I got to be around your ass anyway. So let's learn from each other. Let's understand like what makes you uniquely you and what makes us uniquely us. And truthfully, I've seen them so much in the marketplace that I've developed friendships. A lot of folks on the IG side, on the Facebook side, on the Snapchat side. So we're all colleagues. We grab food. We talk shit. We talk pretty transparently, because the truth of the matter is a lot of us deal with a lot of similar things internally. You always play for the jersey on the front of your chest, right? So I'm always going to be Team Bird Gang, of course, but
T-Bird.
those folks are great people, man, and we work with the same stakeholders in the space. So I think it benefits all of us to understand what makes each other's platforms so beneficial, and how we can work together in partnership as we see each
I
other.
think Twitter though has unique. I don't mean this to be a public service announcement. Twitter, I think, is in a really good space because, listen, Instagram stories really hurt Snapchat. Like that was a big blow. You've seen the daily active users go down, and Instagram just went crazy, and that was a big move. I think for you guys though, you guys are so 24/7, so real time, especially in sports, and really the only place that people can mention or hashtag and just get. I mean, every time there's an earthquake, I search on Twitter and everybody's like, "Yep, that was an earthquake. That was an earthquake." I mean, little stuff like that, all the way down to stuff happening very seriously in Kenya and these different locations in Egypt where people are actually finding places safe to go to. I just think from like your guys' perspective, there's no real direct competitor for what you all do.
Yeah, and that's what we've hung our hat on, man. Like, if you want to know what's happening in real time, you come to Twitter. It's really, really, really
Yeah.
simple. If you want to join that real time conversation around your favorite event, your favorite album that just dropped, your favorite team, that conversation occurs on Twitter. And the beauty of it is oftentimes the conversation blossoms and it unfolds at other places, but in real time, it starts on Twitter.
Absolutely. All right, so I want to get into streaming because you mentioned earlier in the show about Thursday Night Football, which I thought was huge just for sports and technology and where that's going. A lot of rights deals are coming up here, 2020, 2022, and being the head of U.S. sports and seeing 5G potentially being ready at that time. Where do you think we're headed with all this? Because I think there's always been the NBCs and ABCs and Foxes of the world, but it seems like the platforms, the Twitters, the Amazons, etc., are definitely going to be having a seat at the table.
Yeah, I think sometimes people forget how expensive rights are. Rights are really, like, we're talking B's, like not M's, we're talking billions of dollars. And while
Which I thought the original Thursday Night Football deal though was like the steal of all time. Like that was an amazing, amazing deal.
yeah, I mean, my mom always told me to look for the best price, man. So we were able to, and plus that was a great deal. That was, and the beauty of that is
What was
it
it, $1
happened
million
quickly.
per game for eight games, something like that?
I try not to talk about the pockets, man, but it happened quickly.
That was
It
public.
happened
That was public.
it happened relatively quickly, and the NFL
Yeah.
was just eager to test and learn. Like, what do we have here,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
what would this look like on platforms? And we were able to get in there and work with them, and we learned a ton. That deal actually was the impetus for our live business. So we've learned a ton there. But I mean, when you think about these deals, I mean, with ESPN, like I believe that the Monday Night Football deal is $2 billion. The Turner with ESPN and NBA deal is 2.5, $3 billion. That's big. That's big. That's big money, man.
Wasn't March Madness like 10 years at like 8.5 billion or something like that? It's
it,
insane.
it's unbelievable. So it shows how valuable
Yeah.
these rights are. But to me, it's also confirmation that linear dollars are that's a whole different ball game. And linear investments and the checks that our colleagues at the network can cut
Yeah.
will always be different than at least what I know that we will be able to do. So
Is that true though? Is that true as we talk about 2025? I'm just thinking in terms of the attention and the cable cutters and the majority of money from television coming from paid advertisement on commercials, and more than anybody, like that habit's starting to change in a drastic way.
yeah, it is. But what I would say is, like, TV advertising dollars are still massively
Yeah.
massively larger than what exists on digital. So what I think will happen is what you've indicated. There will be further fragmentation, and there will be opportunities for folks within our space to get in there, to be opportunistic, to be scrappy, and maybe get some of these rights. Particularly a player like an Amazon. But I mean, our priority maintain is the same, and that's to be a compliment to these rights holders who've done amazing work in the right space for a really, really long time. Sometimes that'll mean that there is a digital carve out or digital extension to rights that may have lived on linear that makes sense for Twitter, and sometimes it may mean that um, the rights will live with them, but we'll create a really cool ancillary experience to drive affinity for that particular property. So I do think you'll see more fragmentation, but I also think that our counterparts on the linear and rights holder side will probably get a bit more aggressive with the investments
Yeah.
that they're willing to chalk up.
Well, and if they can make the, and I'm sure you agree with this, if they can make the adjustment quick enough over the next 5 to 10 years of moving those ad dollars to an ESPN Plus or to more of an OTT platform, I just think that's probably going to go down a little bit and then rise back up because it's going to be difficult to keep that trajectory. But it seems like if you look like at ESPN, they're going to go all in on ESPN Plus, make that switch eventually, and then potentially keep the same type of revenue model.
Yeah, agreed. I think what is going to become the most fascinating is watching how creative rights holders get about carve outs. Uh, you think about like what the NFL has been able to do with Thursday Night Football. That's a TriCast that lives on Amazon, it lives on NFL Network, and it lives on their respective broadcast partner. It lives in three different places. They've been able to carve that bad boy out and monetize it in each location.
That's true.
With us, we've been able to work with MLS. Like last year, we had weekly MLS games, and they were blacked out in local regions, right? And Facebook had a really cool deal with, MLB, and they had exclusive games that lived on Facebook. So these rights holders are just so smart, man, and they're carving out inventory, they're carving out rights that will allow them the flexibility to test and learn with properties such as us. So it'll get fun, which is why I just get so excited about what we have to learn and the discussions that we can continue to have with these rights holders.
How excited are you about programmatic ads? Because I think we're going pretty quickly to a place where, with these different streaming platforms, David likes the Lakers. He lives in LA. He likes Ball is Life on Twitter, and he just liked Kawhi Leonard's New Balance ad. So we're going to serve him Kawhi Leonard's new shoe ad and just be like, to get really like granular to that. I think that's what's so interesting about what you guys potentially could do in the future and what these streaming platforms, because right now linear advertising is like hoping and praying that the right people are watching their ad. But pretty soon here, it's going to get exactly what TJ wants. It's going to get right in your face type deal.
Yeah, I think where it gets fun and interesting is when marketers, and they're there right now, understand that they can almost surprise and delight me with advertising. To your point, if I like an NBA highlight of LeBron dunking and Nike serves up a pre-roll or a tweet with the new LeBrons, like that is a pretty cool experience for me, you know? So
Yep.
on the flip side, some consumers view it as intrusive or creepy,
Privacy,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so there's a thin line, there's a balance there for sure, but marketers are really smart, and laws are such that they're requiring platforms like us to be really, really, really diligent about what is allowed versus what isn't allowed. So I think we'll get to a good place. We all got a lot to learn. Nobody has all the answers, so we'll see what happens.
What's the most exciting thing you've worked on as of late that really pumped you up or just got you excited once the deal was signed and you knew like, hey, we're about to drop it on these folks?
Wow, that is a good one. I mean, I'd have to say that it two. So one was actually, we'll say three.
Don't be politically correct. I want to hear your favorite.
We'll say three.
All right.
The most dominant team in the world, in my estimation, is the U.S. women's soccer team. So we've been able to work with Fox to create programming around the U.S. the Women's World Cup. We're
It's coming up.
really excited about that. It is coming up, and we get to watch greatness, and that greatness gets to unfold in the form of highlights on Twitter. So that's super exciting.
Awesome.
Two of the programs that I'm just through the roof about. It's one we launched with Major League Baseball called the MLB Twitter Hitter. So every single day, Major League Baseball publishes a poll with four options. It'll say, who do you want to see on Twitter? Whose at-bats do you want to see live on Twitter today? It'll be Bryce. It'll be Trout. It'll be Machado. It'll be Puig. Whoever wins that poll, Major League Baseball will live stream each of their at-bats that entire day. That's really cool, right? Because you do two things. One, you engage users and you figure out what they want. Then two, you provide them with the content that they've told you that they want. So in a few instances, we've had some of the Twitter hitters actually hit long balls, hit home runs. So that's been really cool because it isn't a live game per se, but it engages the users on the platform, and it provides really cool content. So a live series of at bats every single day. So that's fun. And then of course the NBA Twitter Live, which is something that we've worked on for a while. We have known that NBA Twitter is just this amazing, vibrant community on the platform. So we've really challenged ourselves with providing that community with content that they'll get excited about. And we kept knocking at it. And we were able to work with Turner and the NBA to live stream the second half of games with a different set of hosts and Twitter commentary. It's really fun. And these are the types of deals that we're looking to do more of moving forward. We don't want to just snag a linear broadcast and force it to Twitter timelines. We need to figure out ways to make it unique and differentiated. We know that a user is not going to be holding their phone, watching a game for 2 hours. So how do we incentivize that user to stick around, to join the conversation, and to want to watch this content on Twitter? So we just got to get creative, but those two deals are two that I'm really excited about.
That's awesome. What are the numbers and metrics you guys are looking at? Because as a public company too, you're always judged on a quarterly basis. I mean, when you're trying to build something for the future, quarterly isn't always the best way to look at those metrics, but it's kind of the nature of the beast. Are you guys still looking at monthly active users? Is it user growth? What are kind of the main metrics your team's looking at on a monthly, quarterly, yearly basis?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll tell you quite simply, we are looking at content that drives conversation. That is from the top down. Jack wants us to really engage with our users in a deeper way. And what we believe our superpower is that live, real-time conversation. So figuring out ways to encourage our publishers and folks who use Twitter on a day-to-day basis to join that real-time conversation on a day-to-day basis. So our top metric moving forward, or one of our priority metrics moving forward, will be conversation. What drives conversation, and how we can lean into that a bit more than we have in the past.
Love it. All right, so I got some rapid fire here to finish things off.
Uh-oh.
This may be easy for you, but we'll see. Outside of Twitter, what is the one social or marketing tool that you could not live without?
Outside of Twitter, what is the one social or marketing tool that I cannot live without? My answer would be WhatsApp.
Yeah.
I'm African, man, so my family blows my WhatsApp up. So there's a lot of conversation and connecting that occurs within WhatsApp.
All right, give me your guilty Twitter social follow.
Woo! Guilty Twitter social follow. Oh, that's a good question. Whew. I know the world is watching this, man. So I gotta be really, really particular. There is. I mean, this isn't guilty. Like, I'm unabashed about this. Like, all things sneakers is my my love. So BR Kicks is one that I have on notifications, and I shamelessly
Notifications. Wow, that's a
I
good
look at. Yeah, I look at quite a bit, and Kicks deals. I like to find the sales, man. So I get those notifications.
How many shoes? How many shoes? Pair of shoes do you own?
So I started to give a lot away, mainly because my mother shamed me, and secondarily because I live in New York and I don't have that much
Right,
space.
room.
So I would say that I probably got at in my New York City apartment. I probably got 75 or so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
got a few at the office.
what
I got a few at my mom's place too.
what's one athlete that you wish everybody followed?
Wow, damn, DB, woo, some heat that I wish everybody followed. Oh man,
I know this is easy.
there are a few. Well, hey, not one that like everybody knows, right? Like, are we talking understated, like surprise ones?
I just think like even a casual fan, like you gotta follow this guy, you gotta follow this girl.
So
Um,
the obvious answer is like so. Joel Embiid is obviously
yes.
fantastic. Juju
Yeah.
Smith-Schuster is fantastic.
Hmm.
But Lesher Heralded, Snacks Harrison, is hilarious at Snacks
Okay.
on Twitter. He just had a March Madness uh, competition on his timeline about snacks. Obviously, he has an affinity for snacks. He's great. A lot of the young guys in the NBA are awesome. CJ McCollum, Dame Lillard, Kyle Kuzma, Donovan Mitchell. Those folks are all really, really good.
In our industry, FOMO is a major thing. What are the different things that you do to keep up to speed on this ever-changing, crazy industry that we're in?
Yeah, I try to stay as well read as possible and well versed. Having conversations with folks like yourself. Um, for me, we talk about this SM sports community, and you see the hashtags all the time. Like there's this built-in repository of
Yeah.
social media learnings that you can opt into simply by clicking the hashtag SM sports. And I don't know how often
Yeah.
you do it or people who are watching do it.
I do.
There are tons of learnings to be sourced
Hmm.
directly by clicking onto that hashtag. It's phenomenal, and I would encourage people because sometimes you may tweet out something with the hashtag SM Sports, and you may not get it may not go viral, or you may not get all the engagements you want to. But I want y'all to
Yep.
that people are watching that stuff and people are looking at it, and it is really, 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 really impactful, thoughtful stuff. So keep those tweets coming. But yeah, staying well read, being well versed on the SM sports community, and just trying to develop really deep and meaningful relationships with our sports properties so I can learn what keeps them up at night and figure out ways
Yep.
I can help them drive their business forward.
Overall, what inspires you to stay on the cutting edge?
What inspires me to stay on the cutting edge? I grew up a sports obsessed nut. So sports is truly my passion. Uh, so the fact that I get to work in my passion and learn about the business of what I'm passionate about, that gets me excited. That gets me up in the morning to the job because I truly learn from it, and I truly feel rewarded by working with these publishers, by working with these properties and learning about their businesses and learning ways that I can help drive that and drive Twitter's business as well. So that and just staying thirsty, staying hungry, man, like
Yeah.
staying eager to learn. That I'd say those are the things that do it for me, man.
Over under 60% chance that Kevin Durant goes to the New York Knicks.
I'm gonna take the over. KD's out. We know that. Okay,
It's a wrap.
KD is not going to play it. Was it the Chase Center? What's it called?
Yeah.
New.
The new Warriors Stadium.
He won't play there. But
Hmm.
I've been as a hoops fan. I've been as a sports fan, particularly a hoops fan. I've always just clamored for someone in free agency, a big free agency type name, to go to New York and resurrect what people call the basketball mecca, which is New York.
I mean, it's been like 30 years. It's becoming a problem.
It is. And could you imagine like a free agency if pre Miami, if LeBron was like, I'm gonna go resurrect Madison Square Garden.
And I think Colin Cowherd said it recently. He's like, it's amazing how well the NBA has done over the last 20 years with no presence in New York. Like, if that happens, they resurrect that.
Oh God.
Wow, the NBA can go on a whole nother level because LA will be popping, New York will be popping.
And think about
Real
like
deal.
the Jeters, even a guy like a Michael Strahan, right? Like when you do it in New York, it's a different level. There's a different level of stardom. There's a different level of access and power that you get.
And MSG is just the best place
Oh my!
to play ball.
Like you, if you get the city a championship, you have a statue on 34th in New York. Like that's big time stuff. So I hope that we'll get to see a bright star come to New York and do some special things. They draft Zion, they get KD,
Oof.
maybe Kemba or Kyrie in free agency. And then you're talking about a different type of basketball team.
All right, so I always ask this at the end of the podcast. If you could recommend anybody in your network that you think would provide value for this show, would you recommend anybody I reach out to speak to next?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of. I think this is a good transition from from my vantage point. Jerron Smith, who works with Steph Curry at Unanimous.
Okay.
They're just doing a lot of really, really cool stuff. Granted, his schedule might be a little wild with the playoffs around the corner.
Yeah.
He's worked at the Obama administration.
Wow.
He worked at Nike, and he's Steph Curry's right hand man on all things business. So
Awesome.
he's a really good one.
I'll have to ask you for that intro.
Yep.
Well, last thing for the people, man. Anybody that's trying to aspire to be in a place like you are right now, head of U.S. sports at a major social network platform. First of all, congrats on all that, man. That's a huge place to be in. Any advice for the folks out there trying to aspire to be at that level one day?
Yeah, I think just continuing to be a student of the game, knowing the business, the in and outs of it, and then building relationships. I mean, you know this better than anybody. A lot of what occurs in our business is a function of people who like working with each other and people who build relationships. But if you couple the knowledge of the business with an ability to build and scale relationships, I think that makes you pretty solid in our space.
Couldn't agree more, man. TJ, head of U.S. Sports, thank you so much for the time, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah. All right. My man, TJ, thank you so much for joining me on the program. That was a really good conversation. I think, really going all the way back to how he got his first job at ESPN. I mean, TJ, if everybody knows him, he's a gifted conversationalist. I think everybody that comes across this young man enjoys his passion, his positivity. I know he has a really good energy. I really enjoy working with him or just, hanging out with him when I have the time. So, TJ does a good job of that. But really getting his first gig in the industry was just going up to people and trying to find out who the decision maker was at ESPN and saying, listen, I'm going to go to Bristol and I'm not leaving without a full-time job offer. And that's just, I think, the drive and determination it takes to be successful and to get where he's got at this point is definitely something to be proud of on his standpoint. I also, never heard this from the Twitter side of things, but they tried the Thursday Night Football, streaming partnership. It went pretty darn successful. I think it was really, we talked about the $1 million. That was public data, but I think it was $1 million per Thursday Night Football for 8 weeks. And the NFL learned a lot from that. Twitter learned a lot from that. But it seemed like Twitter is saying, hey, we're not going to go head to head with NBC and Fox and try to just bid on the rights of the platform. He made a great point. I don't think a lot of people are holding their phone for 2 hours watching an NFL broadcast. So how can we create ancillary content that can really feed the beast that is Twitter and the people that are on that and really give them a second pair of eyeballs at a different look, at a different event. And what they're doing with the MLB and NBA is really, really cool. And then I think, our discussion about programmatic ads, I think, of course, that balance between Cambridge Analytica and what Facebook is going through, but also where marketers want to get to. And that's just like very, very granular bullseye type marketing approaches where if you like Kawhi Leonard and you like New Balance, then I'm going to serve you a New Balance ad type deal. That's where it's going, and that's where marketers are going to want to get, I think, as far as how successful social has been as well. So some really good stuff. Make sure to go follow TJ on Twitter. If you enjoy the program and you guys are weekly listeners, we ask you to go to iTunes and just, hit us with that 5-star review. We always appreciate it. As always, want to thank Will Kelly, David Furker. How about Auntie Lightning? Coming back from the grave here to help us out here on the weekend to get us back up to speed. Appreciate all you guys. Episode 32. This is the Business of Social podcast powered by STN Digital.